Hi everybody, my name is Jeremy, this is Ribbion's Recording, and today I want to talk to you about the transformative power of the Hologram Microcosm effect pedal. This is a sponsored video. Hologram asked me to show off some of the features here that maybe some people haven't talked about and dive into what each of these little settings here might be good for in the context of making some music. So thank you, Hologram, for sponsoring this. This is the Elektron Digitakt. It is a sample playback device, and I have one out, the left out, going directly dry into my audio interface. The right out is going into the hologram as a sort of effect send, and I pan things in the Digitakt to go here, and pan things left that go straight out. So what you just heard was a bunch of stuff all panned to go to the Hologram Microcosm, which, as you can hear, can do some really, really cool stuff to a signal. This is my first time trying this sort of setup where I send basically an output of the Digitakt into something as an effects send. And when Hologram asked me to do this video, I was like, what's going to be the best way to show off like the different ways that the microcosm can transform sounds? And I was like, well, samples is going to be the best way. And honestly, it's a lot of fun. This thing can absolutely transform anything that goes through it into various forms of sort of granular repitching, resequencing. The reverb, obviously, you've heard is very large and lush. And each one of these sections has a different sort of feel. And I guess that's what I want to show you today. I've done a lot of videos with this. There's a video on my second channel where I play every single preset through here with the Arturia Micro Freak. And if you want to hear sort of a raw, just like one synth line, what this thing can do, that's going to be a great video for that. I've also done a lot of performances where modular stuff goes through here, including some where the spherical wavetable navigator is passed through here, and it's really, really cool. And then lately, this has been the main effect unit that I pass my ARP 2600 through, and oh boy, is that a combo. Holy moly, it's beautiful. This is kind of where this is permanently going to live, but I really do like what's going on here. So let's get into why, and let's talk about what the Hologram Microcosm does. Each one of these sections here, starting at the top with Mosaic, Seek, Glide, Blocks, Interrupt, ARP, Haze, Tunnel Strum, Pattern, and Warp. These are all different ways of processing your signal, and they all focus around sort of like grabbing little chunks of the signal and repurposing it in rhythmic ways or granular ways, or sort of like repitching it, reversing it. Some of them are more glitchy than others. Some of them are actually really great for drums, and I'll show that off. Every single one of these has 4 sort of variations to it. So I'm on Mosaic right now. As I turn this, I get 4 different variations, and each one sort of has a slightly different feel. For instance, with Mosaic, that's the last one. And if I go over to the first one again, it has a different feel. And that feel can also be adjusted by the activity knob, which is going to have a different effect on sort of the amount of stuff going on, especially when you get into like blocks and interrupt and seek. It may actually add or subtract a bit of sort of bit crushing or something like that to it. So this is kind of a magic knob. It does a lot of different things depending on where you're at. The other thing we can do is let's go down to pattern delay real quick. And I want to show you what's going on with the clock and how this time knob is going to be your best friend. So I have the Digitakt's MIDI out sync going into the input here of the microcosm. And when I first got the microcosm, I did not clock it. And that was a mistake because clocking this is the way to get the best sort of like relationship with rhythmic stuff out of it. And you'll see that especially when we get into like the drums and stuff like that. So let me show you what this time knob does in relation to something like a delay. So it's sort of a subdivider, right? The top, it's going to be quarter note timing, and then over here, slower. Over here, faster. Things like blocks and interrupt, you'll hear this a lot. Or actually sequence. Let's go to sequence real quick. Now, in some cases, because this is basically sort of a granular-based puddle, meaning that it grabs chunks of your audio and will do things to them, this is kind of going to act as like a sampler, like when it's actually picking up the grains to do stuff with, when it's picking that audio buffer to do stuff with. So you may find in some cases that when you turn this slower, depending on what you have going through it, you won't hear something. If I had like a pad running through this right now, I could probably get away with a quarter note and half notes, but with this particular one, I want to go a bit faster. This is a good opportunity as well to talk about the shape. So right now I have it in this downward ramp sort of thing. This is the shape of the sort of grains or audio buffer events that come off of the microcosm. So right now I have it in this sharp one, and I use this one actually most often, but there are things like with blocks and interrupt. Let's go down to blocks real quick and take a listen to this. So you can hear that upward ramp thing, and the bass isn't going here, by the way. So let me just turn that off real quick. So you can hear there's a smoother sort of response here. You can hear that downward ramps happening there. Reverse ramp. And then finally, very hard squares. So some of these are going to respond really well to that hard square. As we move from left to right within the context of each sort of setting here, each effect setting, things are going to get a little bit more extreme. So for instance, this right-hand block one, it's going to add a little bit more effect going on. That bit crushing and filtering, we can adjust by turning the activity knob. And finally, we have repeats. This will act differently depending on each thing, but you can imagine it sort of like with the delays, like a feedback for the delay. Though this thing never actually, feeds back in an ugly way. We have a filter, which is very useful for performance, especially in this setting when I'm actually passing like a bunch of the instruments I have through it, because it gives me basically a DJ style filter over that. I have the resonance bumped up all the way on this. You can hear kind of a little bit of that juiciness going on, which is really, really nice. And finally, we have a reverb, which blows out the effect. And there's actually a bunch of different reverb times in here. I think there's 4 different ones that you can select. The shift function here selects the different things. There's also a mod depth and mod frequency, which will affect sort of the pitch of the thing. It's sort of like a warbly chorus. I have it down all the way. And I actually, for a long time, forgot that I had turned it up. And so everything that was coming out of this was like warbly and sort of very like broken record. That could be your thing. It's not what I want to do right now. So we've been listening to this one pattern with a few things. I've got a bunch of patterns here. What should we do next? I probably won't be getting into the phrase looper. There is a looper in here, which is very easy to use, especially if you have the quantize function on. You can hold this down to record a loop. And then you can stop it and then play it back. There's pre-loop effects, there's post-loop effects, you can reverse it. And there's also a hold function, which is really cool. So let me go over to Mosaic again. Mosaic is one of my favorites. I know why they put it first. You can hear that we've held a little buffer there. And guess what? The effects still have an effect on that. Isn't that rad? I think it's neat. I like to think of the microcosm, especially in the way that I use it, as a texture generator. It will spin off copies of things that I have played into new and interesting things. And it's a very intuitive instrument in that once you sort of get a feeling of what each one of these does, you'll know what to reach for when you want to create a certain vibe. Some of them are more appropriate for certain kinds of material, but you'd be surprised like how well this thing works on all different kinds of stuff. Let's move on to another example real quick, and we'll listen to some of these other things. I think I'm just going to jump straight to drums. This is going to be a little aggressive, but the fact of the matter is I don't think a lot of people think of this as a granular drum processor, and oh boy, is it. Yeah. And then you can go up to something like sequence. So glide is one of the ones that's a bit odd, and it's going to sound different on different kinds of material, but think of it as sort of a pitch ramp that goes up and down and takes your signal with it. It's fun. It's funky on drums. Let's take a listen real quick. So you hear that sort of LFO? It'll change as I turn this. All right, let's go to something like Mosaic, which is, a granular sort of thing. So the microcosm can be a stereo in or a mono in. Right now I just have a mono in, but you can hear that it's creating a gigantic stereo image from this, which is really, really cool to me. Actually, I found that like tunnel and strum sound pretty cool on drums. And once you've like heard what these sound like, The names actually make a lot of sense. Tunnel generally has a lot of filtering and filter movement to it, like you're in a tunnel. There's strum. You can hear creating little strum granules off the whole thing. And then finally, we have some cool delays down here. Okay, so we've started with the sort of weirdest example, just because I wanted to put up front that this thing can really kick ass on things like drums. It's really fun to process breakbeats with. It's really cool. I hope you can see why I like it. All right, let's move on to some other examples. And I think I'm going to try to put a little mini performance together with this whole thing and stick it up on my second channel. So if you just want to hear this in action with this setup, or want to hear more of some of the things we're doing today, go check that out. Link in the bottom thing. All right, we're going to go back to Mosaic for this one, because I really like the way it sounds on this particular thing. So we'll start at 0 here. And put the tap and everything right in the middle. So we're going to be working at a quarter note. And let's listen to our pattern. That is completely dry. Shall we bring in the microcosm and see what happens? Of course. Hear those glittery little bits? Oh, it's so cool. I really like the ones where it repitches. We're on Mosaic on the last one. I usually go to the last one to hear if there's any kind of granular repitching, because I really, really like that feeling. So sequence, you can hear, actually takes our chunks of our audio and completely resequences them. I mean, it's pretty goddamn cool. I have a lot of shuffle on this, so it's not going to work quite so well, but you can go to eighth notes. listen to that. This is haze. We haven't used this yet, but it certainly does create a haze.
Take it from the top.
That's beautiful. So yeah, let's move on. Let's hear how this sounds on some guitar stuff. I have got this really nice little ambient loop I'm going to put in here now. These are 4 guitar loops. Let's start bringing in Microcosm. Turn the space down for right now. So you can hear that sort of chopping these up into little blocks and resequencing them for us. It's like instant Dintel. This last one's going to add some bit crush stuff. So let's turn the activity down a little bit. Can mix it in with our drive signal. So just to be clear, like we barely have any insinuation of tempo in this original bit here. But just like any good glitch plugin, we start getting a little bit of tempo. All right, let's try out interrupt on this. Cool. I'm going to go straight to 4. That's so cool. This is the kind of glitch stuff I love to do in modular, but also in software. And it's really neat that it's just built into this pedal. That's so cool. Let's go back to Mosaic for this one. I really like Mosaic for this. So just to that's what it sounded like before. Let's go ahead and bring in the space. Yes. And now the rest of the owl I will draw for you. Texture is really, really important to me. I like to fill in spaces with texture. I do it with reverbs, I do it with delays, and now I do it with things like the data bender, with the Mellitus Versio from Noise Engineering. I just really like it. It takes stale sort of like mechanical things and just turns them into really, really cool, skittery, beautiful things. And those sort of offbeat, off-kilter reinterpretations of an otherwise stagnant beat, like we've heard with the drums that we first tried out, and also with the way that it takes normal rhythms and spreads them out over time. That's what creates organic interest to me in a mix. And I'm always striving to add it. So thank you, Microcosm. Can hear Glide working on that little stab. We're gonna go to Tunnel now to hear some of the cool filtering this can do on it. By the way, this is what it sounded like before. Okay, so let's just do a quick recap. I'll play us out and make sure that you check the video description if you want to hear some of these just performed without me talking. The Hologram Microcosm is a pedal that will create textures from the audio that you pass through it. Time textures, semi-time textures, repitch textures, reverse textures, filtered textures, all different kinds of textures. We have multiple different sort of algorithms for these, and each one has 4 flavors. Activity will increase and decrease the amount of sort of stuff going on. Our time here, when clocked, will actually create different time values for that stuff. We can change the shape of our grains and audio buffer repeats. We have a nice low-pass filter, mix, obviously, a wonderful reverb, and then there is a phrase looper built in, and we have a hold button to capture little tiny bits of things and just play with them. One thing I haven't told you yet, and maybe you've picked up on it, is that the space effect does cover up the slight break in moving through the effects, which is really, really nice to keep in mind. So you can use the space effect to obfuscate moving through these. You can save some presets if you want. So if you have some settings that you really, really like, just save them in there. And I believe that's down in the user section where you would end up. One more little transformative outro piece. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you can see why the microcosm is special. I'd love to know how you are using it in your setup. I've heard some people using it or trying to use it as a send on the Octatrack, which I think is a really, really brilliant idea. So yeah, let me know in the comments how you're using the Hologram Microcosm. And my name is Jeremy. This is Red Means Recording, and I hope you have a wonderful day.